I can remember at San Jose State walking through the campus in my one fantastic outfit that I bought at the Velvet Underground in downtown San Francisco. That was like silky bell bottoms and a silky top and really high heel shoes, kind of like the ones I'm wearing right now, and long hair, and carrying my Goya classical guitar and walking through and thinking to myself, do you all know who I am? And of course I'm nobody, but I'm thinking, do you know who I am? Because I am somebody. In fact, I am actually a rock star already, because in my heart I was.
Everybody has a story, and there is something to be learned from every experience.
Knowing who you are, that's the foundation of everything great.
I mean, in a way, I'm here because all my plans failed.
Don't be afraid to do something unconventional, to take a chance, to risk something.
If you want something, you can make it happen.
And we're all on the same journey.
Just wake up curious.
We are not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be whole.
Follow your own muse. Always.
When you learn, teach. Use your life as a class. She has the look, the songs, and the unmistakable voice. Stevie Nicks has always been a rock star. Always. From writing her first song as a teenager to meeting guitar legend Lindsey Buckingham and beginning one of rock's most tumultuous love affairs, Stevie's life has been filled with stratospheric highs and crushing lows. As the lead singer of supergroup Fleetwood Mac, she became rich and famous almost overnight, and then the sex and drugs caught up with the rock and roll. Cocaine, then a serious prescription drug addiction, took many of what Stevie says could have been her most creative years. Incredibly, she survived. Now she continues to tour the world as part of her chart-topping solo career and with Fleetwood Mac. And each time she takes the stage, she's doing what she loves most. And yet, just like when she was a little girl singing duets with her grandfather, for Stevie, it's always been about the music.
My granddad was the first person that really brought music to me, and he brought it to me very young. He started singing to me when I was really little, and I instantly took to it. He was a really good fiddle player. He was a great harmonica player, and he wrote really good songs. I can remember him coming to our house and spending a week and getting out his guitar, and he'd play guitar, and I'd sing with him, and I'm little. But I would still manage to, be kind of very conscious of who he was and what he was doing. And he would sing different crazy country songs for me, and we would actually be able to pump out a little duet here and there. And I was thrilled. And I think he knew from the very, very beginning that this was going to be something that I would probably want to do too, because I just took to it like a fish to water. My mother was always totally supportive of me and whatever I wanted to do, even as a young girl. But she was also very strict with me, and she was hard on me in a lot of ways because she wanted me to be independent. And that's because she was very poor when she was young. So she really, rose up above the fray to be independent at 16. And she wanted me to not ever have to depend on anyone. And she wanted me to be fearless. So I, had to work for everything I got. And I didn't get to buy really expensive clothes in high school. And my mom made a lot of my clothes. From the day she married my dad, she took care of all the money, and she took 50% out of every one of my dad's checks and put it in the bank. And my mom would always say to me, you better be the president of your company, or the lead singer of your band, or the boss, because you don't like to be told what to do. And she was totally right. My mother kept me very close. So because she kept me so close, and because she kept me home a lot, she continually was telling me all her little wise ways to get through life. So she was always talking to me about life. Always. She taught me about rules, even though I don't love rules. I understood that there were rules, and I followed them because I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't ever want her to be mad at me. So I learned that there are things that you could do and things that you couldn't do. My mom just passed away in December. She got emphysema and pneumonia, and she passed away very unexpectedly. And so I thought I had years left to ask her all those questions that I wanted to ask her. And then she was gone, and I didn't get to. It wasn't because I didn't want to sit down with her and talk to her about her life. It was just because I just didn't think she was going anywhere. I have really been soul-searching about the fact that there's a lot of stuff that I'm never going to know because I didn't sit down with her and ask her. And that's been a very hard lesson for me. So my advice to everybody that still has their parents is make sure that you sit down and talk to them about what they did when they were kids and what they were like when they were young and when they were first married and all those things, because you really lose out if you don't. Time waits for no one, and things can end tomorrow. So if there's stuff you want to know, find out. I got a guitar when I was 15 and a half, almost 16. And I wrote a song. And that was and I gathered my parents in my room, listened to this, played the guitar, played my song, and they were both like, you know what, that's a really good song. And so from that moment onward, I think they went, you know what, that's what she's gonna go in that direction. I met Lindsay Buckingham at a gathering in my senior year at Menlo Atherton High School in San Francisco. I went to this party that I don't really remember what it was. And Lindsay was sitting in a chair over in the corner, playing his guitar, and he was singing California Dreaming. And of course I knew that song. And I brazenly walked over and burst into song. And I think he was a little surprised because it really was kind of a gutsy thing to do. But luckily, I'm a good singer and I knew the words, and I'm a really good harmony singer. So I was able to just, whip up to the Michelle Phillips, Mama Cass part in a second. And so we sang, 3/4 of the song, sang it out. And then I think I walked away. I probably said, "Hi, I'm Stevie Nicks," and he probably said, "Hi, I'm Lindsay Buckingham." He tells a different story. He says that I actually reached down and kissed him on the cheek or something. I don't remember that. But he says that happened. So maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Then I didn't see Lindsay again until his band, his drummer, actually called me. And they asked me, "Well, Lindsay remembered, that night where you sang with him at that party, and would you like to be in our band? We're looking for a girl singer." And I said to myself, what kind of band is this, because a phone call like that, it could be any kind of a band. And so the guy who was the drummer, who was very, very funny and very dry, he said, "Stevie, this is San Francisco. It's a rock band." And I'm like, yes. I'm thinking, okay, I can do it. I think I can do it. Okay, I can do it. I mean, I have walked around with my brush singing Take Another Little Piece of My Heart with Janis Joplin around my house, so I can probably do this. So I said, yeah, sure, I can do it. I'd love to do it. And I asked my parents, and they said, you can be in a band, and your father and I will totally let you do that, but you have to go to college. You can't just quit school. If you stay in school, we will support you. So I found out then that Lindsay lived in the same gated community that my mom and dad and me and my brother lived in. So on Monday, I showed up at his house at 5:30, and the whole band, all 5 people in the band, including me, were there, and I just started learning songs. I was able to go to practice from 5:30 to 10:30 every night, and then I was able to play a gig on Friday and Saturday night, and then I was able to have, Sunday to study, and then I would study when I would get home at 10:30 until 2 or 3 or 4, and get up and start again. As long as I did that, my mom and dad were fine. Lindsay and I both had a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and we really weren't interested in each other at all. We were in a band together. It was really great, and we were the 2 lead singers standing, right there, and it was a really good band. And that was, 68, 69, 70, just barely into 71, which was the best part of San Francisco music ever. So we were right in the middle of the Woodstock years. And we played everywhere. And we opened for every big band that was up in San Francisco at that time. From Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Frost Amphitheater, the Fillmore, Avalon Ballroom, Winterland, and everything in between. It was a marvelous time to live in San Francisco.
You're watching Masterclass with Stevie Nicks.
Lindsay's dad was the president of a coffee company up by the Cow Palace in San Francisco. And he let us have a little room in his coffee building. We could go there at 9, and we could stay there from like 9 to 3 and work on our music. And we had an Ampex 4-track that's like the size of a washing machine today. So we drive up there every night. I'd sit on the floor and crochet, and Lindsay would work the magic on the thing, and then he'd say, okay, here, sing a vocal. And I'd like put my crocheting down and I'd sing a vocal, and then he'd take the mic back, and then he'd play the guitar, and then he'd play another track on the guitar, and then we'd sing backgrounds, and then I'd go back to my crocheting, and that was like for 10 months. We were working really hard to write these songs and get this all together. And that kind of pushed Lindsay and I together. We'd be up in the big, empty, creepy, freaky coffee place all night long by ourselves. And, we just fell in love. So by the time we got to the end of the 10 months, we were definitely a couple, which kind of, changed everything in a lot of ways, because then it was just me and him, and we were just me and him moving to Los Angeles by ourselves. When I called my mother and said, it's time for us to go to Los Angeles, the time is right, she said, well, your father and I support that. However, we will completely withdraw all financial support. I'm sitting in my apartment in San Jose like, okay, I know that, and I accept that. So Lindsay and I drove to Los Angeles, and I got a job as a waitress. That was very different than living in San Francisco, going to school, playing big shows. When we moved to Los Angeles, we weren't playing big shows. We weren't playing any shows. We were working on our music at night, and I had all different jobs in the daytime. Lindsay didn't really have any jobs, because what would he do? I mean, really, what is Lindsay Buckingham gonna do? Waiter? I don't think so. I knew him way too well to know, sometimes, you know your man, and you're like, this is it. He is a music man. That's what he does. He doesn't do anything else. I, on the other hand, am a girl of all trades. I paid the rent and paid for the car. He'd work on music all day long. Then I'd come home and he'd have one of my songs worked out, and it would be fantastic. And then at 9 o'clock, we'd go downstairs to our little basement recording studio, and we would work on our music until 2 or 3 in the morning. That's when we took all these songs and even worked on them more. And then we went in 1972, recorded Buckingham Nicks. And it was really great. And Polydor released it, and it got a lot of critical acclaim. And then Polydor just dropped it, just dropped the record, and us. So we were back to square one at that point. There was a moment towards the end of 1974 where I was really getting tired of being a waitress. And I was really, really getting tired of being just so poor. We could not afford to buy anything except just enough food to eat, and that was it, and gas for our car. During that year, I considered, well, if we do this record and and we have no luck with it, maybe I'll just go back to school for a year. And at least I'll be, able to breathe, to not have to be working on music all night long and being a waitress all day. And so this, didn't do a lot for our relationship, because fear never helps relationships. And when you are kind of scared about where your next money is coming from, or really, how are you going to keep this whole boat afloat, it's really nerve-wracking. And so that's hard on a relationship, and it was very hard on our relationship. And there were points during that time where I was like, this is never going to work. this is just never going to work, and we're going to end up breaking up, and everything we've worked for is going to be done, and it's all going to be for nothing. And that's really what the song Landslide is about. To give that up because our relationship wasn't working. I just, made many different decisions along the way. Is it worth staying in this relationship to keep this music together? And my opinion always was, yes, it is. What we have to offer is way better than what I have to offer by myself or what he has to offer by himself. So you need to stay together.
Well, I've been afraid of changing 'cause I built my life around you, but time made you bolder. Children get older, I'm getting older too. Yes, I'm getting older too.
And then, bang, Mick Fleetwood called. And life changed overnight. Fleetwood Mac, they were a very well-known band in England and in Europe. And they had come to Los Angeles to make a record. And Mick's listening to a song I wrote called Frozen Love, and he's listening to the solo. And he's listening to Lindsay play this solo. And he just went, who is this? Who are these people? So he called, and he called on New Year's Eve. And I went down to Tower Records, and I bought all their records. Like, there was, 6 or 7 records. And I went home, and I listened to all of them, twice. And at the end of listening to these records, I said, I think that we can add to this band. I think that, I think they have a real kind of witchy side that would appeal to us. And I think we can add to this band, and we can make some money, Lindsay. So we should join this band. And he's like, I don't know, I'm really loving this record that we're making, our spec record that we're making for Buckingham Nicks. And of course, I'm at this point, after I've already thought about maybe going back to school, I'm like, listen, I am tired of being a waitress. I don't want to do that anymore. So we need to join the band. And he said, okay. And that was it. And we went into rehearsal a couple days later, and it just was pretty magical from that moment on.
And if you see my reflection in the snow, cover well, the landslide will bring it down. Yeah, the landslide will bring it down. Well, landslide will bring it down.
Dreams. Don't stop. Go your own way. Rhiannon. The list of hits goes on and on. Fleetwood Mac has sold over 100 million albums so far. In the 1970s, they were living up to their supergroup status, and tales of all the stuff we hear: excessive drug use, love affairs, and eventually Stevie and Lindsay's breakup would rock the band.
Lindsay and I joined Fleetwood Mac in the first day of 1975. My first impression of Christine and Mick and John was great. Mick was tall and skinny and crazy and just a creature of strangeness, And Christine was beautiful and sweet and nice and very Earth Mother-y. And John, very quiet. He doesn't say a lot, plays amazing bass. And so this was not a hard bunch of people to really love. We rehearsed for maybe 3 weeks, and we then became real members of Fleetwood Mac. It was great to be young and beautiful and crazy and famous and rich. By the end of that summer, Lindsay and I together were a millionaire. It was a moment. It was spectacular. Lindsay really was my great musical love. But Lindsay was very controlling, and Lindsay was prone to be jealous. And when our relationship started to not go well, then I looked elsewhere because I was so unhappy. So we're together at this point because of our music, and we're trying to keep this music thing together because we know it's great, and we don't want to break up our music thing. Then we joined Fleetwood Mac, and of course, then we were definitely doing better because we were certainly more happy because we were making money, and we both got nice places, and, you know, everything came way up. And so we were happier, and we were so excited, you know, about everything that was happening that the relationship got better for a little while. It was a very romantic time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it was so terribly romantic between me and Lindsay, but the whole thing was romantic. We were just finishing up the end of our 12 songs in Sausalito for Rumors. And I said, we're done. I think that this is over. And we both know now that no matter what it takes, we're gonna keep Fleetwood Mac together. And our breaking up is not gonna break up this band. And I'm not gonna quit, and neither are you. And we were done. And it's really hard, you know, when you break up with somebody or somebody breaks up with you and you're in this band. And guess what? Guess who you have to see the next day in the hotel, in the breakfast room? That person. It's really hard. And by the way, guess who you get to go on stage with tomorrow night? The person that either broke up with you or you broke up with. And you have to go on stage and just be like, fantastic. Because really, the band meant everything. And the band was way more important than each separate person's problems. And we knew that. So we never, ever, with everything that happened to us, ever let love affairs break Fleetwood Mac up. But Lindsay always blamed Fleetwood Mac for the loss of me. That had we not joined Fleetwood Mac, we would have continued on with our music, but we probably would have gotten married, and we probably would have had a child, and it would have been a different life. And it's very possible that we might have gotten married and had a family and still done our music. You know, we were still young enough then that destiny could have taken us another way, but destiny did not take us that way. Destiny took us straight into Fleetwood Mac. So I feel that that is what was supposed to happen. Otherwise, both of us would have fought harder. You know, when I said to him, I'm joining Fleetwood Mac, and so are you, he might have said, you know, well, no. And he didn't. He said, okay. So I think that he knew that I was right. Lindsay and I will always be like connected like this, you know? And we still are. I made a choice years ago not to ever be married and not to have children, because it would get in the way of being a true artist and following my true calling, which is being the artist that I am now. But the fact is that I did get married for 3 months, and then I got unmarried. In 1981, my best friend, her name was Robin, she got leukemia, and she was married to a man named Kim. About 2 months into her cancer, she was in remission, and she got pregnant. And then she went out of remission, and then she went off of all treatment because she knew that she was going to die. And she wanted to leave that baby behind. She wanted something to be left from her. Matthew was born, Robin died, and I was grief-stricken completely and utterly grief-stricken. I had lost the best friend I had ever had in my life. And I just went on a mission, because I wanted that baby. And I convinced Kim. And so 3 months after Robin died, we got married. And I thought that's what Robin would want, somehow. And it just blew up in our faces because it was so the wrong thing to take Matthew and her husband was so beyond insane that, I can't even tell you. One day I went in and Matthew was sleeping, and I swear to God, whenever I'd go in the nursery, the crib would it would seem like it was rocking to me, and I would go, she's here, she's rocking the cradle. And I went in there one day and it was just still. And I looked at Matthew and I just went, she's gone. She's gone. And I walked upstairs and I waited for Kim to come home, and I said, I don't love you, and you don't love me. You may think you love me, but you don't. And so I want a divorce. I can't even my own self sitting here right now going, how could you, what were you thinking, I wasn't thinking. And so that's the story of my marriage. So what ended up happening was that I put Matthew through college, and he and I are very close. He knows the whole story. He knows exactly what happened, and because I've sat with him many times and really told him exactly what did happen. And that was just me in my own crazy way trying to help, Robin was my rock. She was my best, dearest friend since I was 14. And without her, I thought, I'll never make it. So, of course, I was going to try to take care of her baby. But you can't. You can't. You have to let things go like that. It wasn't anybody's fault.
This is Masterclass with Stevie Nicks.
I used to carry a gram of cocaine in my boot at all times. And it was the first thing I thought of when I woke up in the morning, and the last thing I thought of before I went to bed. So 1976, that's when I remember being more aware of cocaine. And it was appearing in a way where somebody would just give you a little bit and you'd be like, oh, cool, I have a little energy now. And that was really what it was. So then you have a hit of coke and then you're too nervous. And then you're too nervous, so then you say, well, then I'll have a little shot of brandy. And then you feel like maybe you're a little teeny bit drunk. And then, so you'll have another hit of coke because then that's going to make you not so drunk. So I'm looking, towards going into 1977, going into the making of Rumors. Then cocaine really started appearing, and you start buying it. And that's what makes it different, is, if you buy it, then you're buying it. And if you're buying it, you're doing it. So we were doing it. And that's what happened. And the cycle then just escalates. So it slowly escalated, 77, by 78, it was, escalating more. By 79, when we went in to do the Tusk record at Village Recorders here in Los Angeles, we were pretty much there for 13 months, 5 days a week. A lot of cocaine being done. And a lot of money being spent. Gazillions of dollars. I can remember thinking to myself at that point, wow, who knew 4 years ago that, that I would even be a part of anything that was this stupid. To be spending this much money on this stupid drug. This is crazy. This could have, 2 weeks worth of cocaine could have paid our rent for 6 months. And it turned people into nutcases. Mick and I would never have had an affair had we not had a party and all been completely drunk and messed up and coked out and, ended up being the last 2 people at the party. And so guess what? It's not hard to figure out what happened. What happened wasn't a good thing. It was doomed. It was a doomed thing, caused a lot of pain for everybody, led to nothing. And I'm like, gee, could you have just laid off the brandy and the coke and the pot for 2 days so that you didn't look like your eyes were swimming in water? Everybody else thought you looked beautiful, but that's because everybody else was stoned. You didn't look beautiful. You looked high and unattractive. So unattractive. So this is not a good part of what I remember about this whole thing. And I had just put out my 3rd solo record in 1986. And I went to a plastic surgeon and he looked in my nose and said, you have a really big hole in your nose and it's very dangerous. And anytime you do this drug, you could basically, your last hit of coke could be your last hit of anything. Because this hole in your nose is way high and it could kill you. You could have a brain hemorrhage. My only advice to anybody who is watching me talk right now is to say, save your money because it's going to cost you $50,000 to go to rehab. Because you will have to go or you will die. I got home and I put my house in order and my tour manager drove me to Betty Ford, and I walked through the doors of Betty Ford and said, I will never, ever be walking through these doors again. So I'm done. And I was there for 30 days, and it was great. It was an amazing experience. So that was a gift. Betty Ford was a gift. And I told Betty Ford that. I went and spoke at a Betty Ford thing a couple of years ago, and she was there, and I said to her, I just want you to know that without you, since 1985 or 86, all those songs and all that music would never have happened because I would have been dead in a year. And she was so great, because she had the problem and she was the First Lady of the United States. And it's like if the First Lady of the United States could beat this, then so can I.
You're watching Masterclass with Stevie Nicks.
Klonopin was given to me a month after I got out of Betty Ford because everybody wanted me to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm not an alcoholic, and I refused to go. So I finally agreed to go to a psychiatrist. God knows why anybody would think that I needed to go on this drug. But he decided that this was the drug for me, and that this was going to be the drug that was going to make sure I never went back to coke. Even though I was sitting across the table from him saying, are you hearing me? I'm not going to ever do cocaine again. I promised Betty Ford I would never be back. In hindsight, I think this guy was a rock and roll groupie doctor. He, over the next 8 years, watched the lights go out in my eyes. He watched me go from 120 pounds to 175 pounds. He watched me sink into a mushroom cloud of crap. And he would just keep giving me a little more. Started out with one blue one in the morning and went to 2 blue ones, one in the afternoon, one at night, and then a blue one in the afternoon, and then 2 blue ones was a white one, and then it was 1 white one 3 times a day, and then it was 1 white one, and then 2 white ones, and then 2 white ones before you went to bed. It was like, horrific. And I just sat on my couch and watched TV and ordered food from Jerry's Deli and just became a total couch potato. And I can remember in like 1993 saying to myself, I used to do Polaroids and I used to use myself as a model. I'd do makeup and clothes and I would really take beautiful pictures. And I can remember like looking at a Polaroid and going, you will never take another beautiful picture. You are done. You are finished. You look awful. Even with your beautiful clothes and your beautiful makeup. you look awful. And I thought to myself, I'll never walk on stage in a long, skinny black dress again. I mean, I can just remember thinking all these things, you know. I'll never. It was like I had just fallen into the black hole. One day I got up and I called my friend Glenn, and I said to him, I want you to take everything that Dr. What's-His-Name gives me. I just want you to take it, just like I take it, at the same time I take it, and see if you live through the day. And he said, okay. So I gave him the morning dose, and then we had lunch, and then I gave him the afternoon dose, and then we had dinner, and we had like a glass of red wine, and then we had more Klonopin, and I think we smoked a joint. Just throw that in. And Glenn totally passed out next to the stereo system on the floor. And I woke him at about like 4 in the morning, and I was, are you dead? Are you okay? And he's like, well, I don't know. I think am I alive? And so we went into the psychiatrist the next day. I said, so I had Glenn take everything that you have me take a day. We added a glass of wine and a half a joint. And he nearly died. And the doctor said, are you trying to kill your friend? And both Glenn and I at the same time said, I said, are you trying to kill me? And Glenn said, are you trying to kill her? And I said, well, I'm stopping this stuff. I'm finished. I want to go to the hospital. And I was there for 47 days. And I almost died. I molted. My hair turned gray. It's like my skin peeled off. It was awful. And I had a picture of my little niece, Jessie, up on my wall right next to my bed. And I would I kept a journal the whole time I was there. And I would write, I'm so sorry, Jessie, that I'm not going to be there to tell you all the cool things that I wanted to tell you and be there to be your crazy aunt. And I just started really thinking like, you know, wow, you're done. This part of your life is done. Unless you do something about it. So can you do something about it? Of course you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you are going to walk back on stage in a beautiful long black dress again. And yes, you are going to take a beautiful picture again. As soon as I got home, it was fantastic because it all came back. It all came right back. I wrote, and I had a record that was getting ready to come out, and the record came out, and I went on tour, and I started up my life again.
Here's the truth. I know this for sure. We are not defined by the challenges in our lives, but how we face them. Stevie Nicks faced her addictions, and she won. Her love of the music, really, that's what sustained her. And for that, she is a master. At 62, she's still rocking and has a lot more music in her. And aren't we glad about that? And what is really remarkable is that even at a young age, she always knew how her life would unfold. She knew she was a rock star. And she's proof that if you really, truly believe in something, you put it out there, you can make it happen.
I think to myself, so when you're 90, because the women in my family live forever, when you're 90, are you going to be sorry that you don't have like a 90-year-old husband that's sitting next to you in a wheelchair that's going like, and now what? Or like, let's watch your old PBS special or something, or let's say we watch the movies neither of us can see. Am I going to be sorry? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. Because it was my plan. We found a letter after my mom died that I wrote in 1973 while we were making Buckingham Nicks. And it's a letter to my dad, and it says, everything's going great, and you know that song, Don't Let Me Down Again? Well, it's coming out amazing. And my dad really loved that song. And I said, and Lindsay's just playing amazing. He's just gonna be one of the guitar greats. And then I branch into this paragraph where I'm like, well, someday when I'm sitting in Beverly Hills in my small but beautiful house, next to my small but elegant pool, in my long white cotton skirt and white blouse with my hat, and enjoying all the music that I love and doing that. I mean, I'm like, what? I planned it out. I planned it out. I think that my life is a testament to believing that if you want something, you can make it happen. So hope springs eternal, you know? Yes, you will take another beautiful picture. Yes, you will walk on stage in a long black skinny dress again. It's possible. So I think what you just have to tell people is it's all possible.